Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
Just the two of us. Building them castles in the sky. Just the two of us. You and I.
Nothing like a good sax solo, am I right? Man, we love love songs, don't we? We love songs that celebrate the human relationship. And, you know, God loves love songs too. He's not just listening to Chris Tomlin all day in heaven. So God loves songs that celebrate the human relationship that He created. The idea of marriage, it's not like, oh, look what happened. I didn't know that was going to happen. God, He knew about marriage, and God rejoices in that. And right near the center of your Bible, we're going to look today at a love song that God put in the Scriptures. It's the book called the Song of Songs. So you go ahead and turn there with me to the book of Song of Songs. Yeah, here we go. We've got some excited people in the room today. The guys are going to take extra close notes, I'm sure. My name is Jack, by the way. I'm one of the pastors here. And like I said earlier, I drew the short straw today, so I'm really excited. I'm just kidding. I'm really excited that we're studying this book. This is an important book for us. And I want us to see in verse 1 of this very important book, the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. This title here of the Song of Songs, this phrase right here, it's meant to hearken us back in our thinking in the Old Testament. In the temple, there's this place called the Holy of Holies. It is the most holy place. It is where God dwells. And this title here, the Song of Songs, is saying that this is the greatest song that Solomon wrote. And that's actually saying something, because Solomon was quite the hit maker. He wrote, it says in 1 Kings 4, he wrote 1,005 songs. Like, I would just probably assume just around to 1,000 songs, but they really wanted you to know those extra 5. He wrote 1,005 songs, and this is his greatest one that he ever wrote. But there's a little bit of baggage that comes with this book. You know, when you start approaching the topic of sex in church, people get really weird. It gets really odd. It's just like, you know, do we really have to talk about this? I was talking with someone just last week, and I told them, yeah, I'm going to be teaching on the Song of Songs next Sunday. And they were just, no, what, you're going to teach on that? No, don't do that. And they were just shocked that I was doing this. I'm thinking, it's in the Bible. Like, it's here, so we need to talk about it. It's such an important thing, and we as Christians, especially evangelicals, if we're not careful, we can get really weird when it gets to the topic of sex. And we're going to talk about this today. But real quick, I want to share a few interpretive notes for you as we approach this book. This is really important for you to pay attention to before we go any further into this song. The first thing I want you to see is that it's not about sex. This is not your sex manual. This is not 50 Shades of Solomon. There are so many popular level sermon series that have tried to make this that. And that's not what it is, okay? The point of this book is not just to be about sex. In fact, if you compare it to a lot of ancient Near East love poetry, which is being written in that time, this is actually a very tame book. It's very beautiful in its description of what sex is and what sex is for. And this book is for every person in this room who's a mature follower of Jesus. Now, I emphasize the mature follower of Jesus because in Hebrew culture, you had to be 30 to be able to read this book. So if you're 29 years old right now, go ahead and stand, and we'll have you answer. No, I'm just kidding. Now, but in all seriousness, it's important to know that you need to be to a certain level of spiritual maturity. Don't just let your 9-year-old start doing a Bible study through it. Maybe just have them wait for a little bit. But this book is so important for us because Paul tells us, in fact, in 2 Timothy 3:16, he says that all Scripture, including the Song of Songs, is inspired by God and is profitable for teaching, for rebuking, for correcting, for training in righteousness, so that you and I can be complete and equipped for every good work. And so this book, with all the baggage and all the things, this book is going to be helpful for you in your life. And so the book is not just about sex, but we need to know that it's also not about sex, okay? That's really important for us to understand this. Like, sex is talked about in the church. And like I said, this could be a really uncomfortable conversation. Some of you grew up in the purity culture, if you remember this, where everyone puts on their promise ring and your chastity belt, and you read, you wear your true love waits shirt, and sex became this really yucky, gross thing. And it's just this terrible thing for so many of us. And so in our minds, we've been trained to make this topic taboo. We don't talk about this in church. That's not a good thing for us to talk about in church. For some of you, though, there's some more serious reasons to why this is a book that you don't want to talk about. Some of you come into this place and you have a lot of shame for mistakes that you have made sexually. And honestly, the idea of talking about sex makes you really uncomfortable because it could remind you of that time and that place. Some of you are in this room right now and you know you're living in sexual sin. And so you don't want us to talk about sex because you know it's going to require you to change, to conform to what God has called us to pursue. And some of you in this room, you've been abused sexually. And this is a really difficult subject, and it takes you back to a really dark time in your life. And these are all really important things for us to consider as we approach this. That's why when we talk about sex, we've been laughing a little bit here right now, but this is a serious conversation. This is a serious thing that we need to look at. And so if we've seen what sex is not and what it is not, what I want you to see is what this book is about. The Song of Songs is a love song that celebrates God's gift of love, intimacy, marriage, and yes, sex. This book is going to help you, whether you are married, whether you're engaged, whether you're dating, whether you're single, whether you're divorced, wherever you are, this book can help you grow in godliness if you will allow it to. And so this applies to our wisdom series because we've been talking in this series, Wisdom Talks, that wisdom is the skill of applying knowledge to building a flourishing life by aligning yourself with God's character and purposes. And this book applies to us because it shows us that wisdom shows us that love is worth pursuing. In a day and age where we don't want to do the hard work to actually pursue relationships, whether it's a dating or marital relationship or a friendship, there are so many people who are lonely in the world right now. But love is worth pursuing. And my hope by the end of our time today is you will see that, and not just see it, that you will take the steps necessary to pursue it. Because, like Genesis tells us, it is not good for you or for me to be alone. And so I want us to see in this book, I want us to show us a few things. As we walk through the book now, it's going to be a little bit of a higher level. There's a narrative to this song. It's like a country music song, where it talks about, there's the guy and there's the girl and all that, and there's a little bit of a story that's woven into the song. That's what this is. And so I want us to see first that love speaks. The first thing we need to understand is that love speaks. And this song starts, and it talks from the female's perspective. It starts as the female, and then there's Solomon, the two primary characters here. And the book comes out hot and heavy. The girl, first thing she says is, I want to kiss Solomon. Like, she is really into him. And notice this. It does not vilify sexual desires. It is not wrong to have a sexual desire. Now, it needs to be for your spouse and not just for any person. But the Bible does not frown upon this sexual desire. And this woman is not married yet to Solomon, but that is her hope. That's what she wants. And she comes out right at the gate by saying what she is desiring. She wants to be intimate with Solomon. But she's insecure. And she has an insecurity, and she speaks it to her community, to her people, and to Solomon. Here's what she says in verse 6. She says, do not stare at me because I am dark, for the sun has gazed on me. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me take care of the vineyards. I have not taken care of my own vineyard. What is this saying? What this is saying is she's not talking about her ethnicity here. She's talking about how she has been forced by her family to go out and work into the fields. And because of this, it's caused her skin to get darker and darker from the blazing sun in that ancient Near East culture. And that was something that was looked down upon. It showed that you were lower in the society's eyes. And notice, too, that she says, my mother's sons did this to her. She doesn't call them her brothers. She calls them my mother's sons. There's relational distance right there. And so for whatever reason, this woman has been kicked out of her house, and she is alone, and she's in a place where she's now having to work and try to make ends meet for herself. Compare that with the man she's interested in, Solomon, who's a king, who's rich, who's handsome. All the women want him, and powerful. And she's saying, there's no way that he would be interested in me because I am not beautiful and I'm not valuable. Do you know what the things are that you're insecure about? Every single person in this room, every single one of us have things that we are insecure about. We have things that we believe because of this, these people would never want to have a friendship with me. This person would never be interested in me. This person, these people here, I'm not good enough. If they knew this about me, every single one of us have lies that are playing in the back of our mind, telling us things that are just not true. And notice what Solomon does. Solomon sees, and he's listening. He's paying attention. He's really hearing what it is that she's afraid of and what she's insecure about. And he says in verse 15, how beautiful you are, my darling. How very beautiful. Your eyes are doves. What is he saying here? The first thing he's wanting to tell her, to the lie that she says, I'm not beautiful, he says, no, that is quite the opposite. You are gorgeous. You are beautiful. And it's so important to be able to speak that clearly to them, to the other person. He's speaking to that. But he also says, your eyes are doves, which is a really interesting line. The eyes are the window to the soul. And he sees, just like doves are the color white, this pure white, he looks in and he sees purity. He sees integrity. He sees her and he says, I see someone that is valuable. I see value and worth in you. I know you don't believe you're beautiful. I think you're beautiful. I know you don't think you're valuable. I think you're valuable. And it's so important for us to be able to hear what the people in our life are most insecure about and be able to speak the truth to them. We need this desperately. Whether this is your spouse, are you paying attention, husbands, to what your wives are afraid of? Wives, are you paying attention to what your husband is most insecure about? And are you able to speak the truth over them? Because our words carry tremendous power. And because Solomon does this, there's a back and forth exchange that happens from the end of chapter 1 through the middle part of chapter 2, where they start speaking life over each other. If you just start the conversation of speaking life, there's so much beauty that happens because it becomes cyclical. You get poured into in the process of it. And here, this woman needed to have this truth spoken over her. And the question is, do you know what the things are that you're most insecure about? And will you communicate that to your spouse so that they can encourage you? And then the second question is, do you know what they are insecure about? And this might not be your spouse. This might be your fiance, boyfriend, girlfriend. This might be a friend, might be people in your life group, people in your circle of life and influence. Are you able to speak life over them because you're paying attention to what they are afraid of? And so we see that love speaks, but the second thing I want you to see is that love also seeks. So in chapter 1, like I said, the woman lays it on pretty heavy, that she is interested in Solomon. She's desiring him. And in chapter 2, the roles reverse. He's pursuing her, but there's this picture of a wall that separates the two of them. And he's really wanting to speed up this relationship. Let's go. I'm really attracted to you. I really, really, really want this relationship to go places. And she's like, whoa, keep your tunic on, bro. Like, just relax for just a second. And she says something in verse 15 of chapter 2 that's really important for us to see. She says, catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, for our vineyards are in full bloom. The vineyards that she's talking about is their relationship. And the little foxes that she's talking about are the things that look cute and look harmless, but if left unattended, can destroy what it is that you are trying to build, whether it's a marriage, a friendship, a family, whatever it is. The things that, if left unattended, can destroy what it is you're trying to build. In 2023, a great example of this is this: your smartphone. I love my smartphone because I can be able to connect with people. I have family all over the country, and I'm able to stay connected with them through FaceTime. I'm able to call them. I'm able to text them. It does a lot of good. Social media is not a bad thing. But for how many of us, and this is a growing epidemic, at the end of a long day, You plop down on the couch, your spouse is on the other side of the couch, you're tired, you've given your job, you've given your kids, you've given all of these things in your life that are not bad in and of themselves, all of your energy, and you don't even have scraps left to give to your spouse. And all you do at the end of the day is just slouch and swipe, 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 and you're just watching reels, TikTok, whatever it is. And then it's bedtime, you want to go to bed, and that's it. This is a growing problem in our study. There have been our country. There have been studies that are done that are showing that this is causing so much relational distance between spouses. But this can happen with friendships as well, because we might not pursue friends because we see what's going on Instagram. That's good enough, no? You know, I see what's going on in your life. I'm aware of it. That's good enough. But we know deep down that that's not. If we're not careful, these things can separate us over time. Another example of this for parents is our kids. I have 3 beautiful daughters. I love my daughters. I love them so much. But I know in 18 years, our youngest, Penelope, is going to be leaving our house. That is our goal. We're raising adults. We're raising godly young women to be able to go out and to be able to be disciples of Jesus and to leave our home. And how many of us know people or have experienced this ourselves where when the kids leave the house and you're now there with your spouse and you forgot, how do I live with this person? Because so much of your emotional time and energy has been spent into investing just into your kids, and for sure invest in them. But this has often been said, and I think it's true, that the best way to love your kids is to love your spouse even more than them. To be able to pour into that relationship, to have a healthy home, a healthy dynamic where your kids can see mom and dad loving each other, modeling love, modeling servant leadership together. But if we're not careful, our kids could be little foxes that could be able to ruin the vineyard of a relationship if they become the end goal in and of themselves. So how does Solomon respond? Solomon's given this task, and we move forward in the story to the end of chapter 3, and it's their wedding day. They make it to the wedding day, so things seem like they're going pretty well. And the people are gathered around, and the people start praising Solomon for all of his wealth and all of his riches and all of his power and all of his opulence and all of these things. They are absolutely praising him. He has such amazing stuff. 2 Chronicles says that there was never been a king up to that point who's been as wealthy or wise as Solomon, and the people are praising him. But what does Solomon do? He tunes it all out. And he sees his wife, and he's looking at her, and he's paying attention to her, and his eyes are on her. And while everyone is praising his stuff, he is praising her. It's actually a pretty funny picture that he lays out. He says that your hair is like goats. It's kind of a weird thing to say. Like, and your teeth are like sheep, he says. It's like, what on earth? Like, what's he talking about? And someone actually did a rendering of this. Like, what would this look like if someone actually drew the picture of his, avert your eyes, but don't. Like, this is like, I love the Pooh Bear here. It's like he's here to catch the honey or whatever. But anyway, I'm going to turn that away. Here's the thing, is that there's actually something really powerful in what he's saying here. You know what he's saying? He's giving more than just physical descriptors. He's describing her character. You know, one thing that he talks about her neck being a tower, which sounds odd, except for what he's saying is she stands up straight. She's a strong, confident woman. And I just want to say this to the women, especially the women who aren't married yet. If you have a man in your life and he needs to feel strong by putting you down, that is not a strong man. That's a weak man. Because strong men celebrate. They are not intimidated by, they celebrate the strength that they see in their women. Husbands, do you celebrate the strength that God has placed in your wife? Do you see this? Do you see her as someone that the strength, Proverbs 31 talks about strength and beauty that this woman has, this Proverbs 31 woman. Do you celebrate this in your wife? If not, I want to encourage you tonight to repent of this and be able to start making it a habit of seeing the strength in the woman that God has given to you. Because this should not cause you insecurity. This should lead you to celebration. because it's displaying the image of God in your wife. It's a beautiful thing. And here, Solomon is not intimidated by this. He's a powerful man. He could be threatened by this, but he's not. He sees her, and he sees her strength, and he celebrates the strength that she has. And the reason why I say all of this is this all goes back to the foxes in the vineyard. This all goes back to it. Solomon did the hard work. He invested in their relationship. He worked so hard in it that the things of his life, his riches and everything, it paled in comparison to the value of what he had in his relationship to his wife, because he invested so much. It was the most important thing to him. She was his prize. Can you say that about your spouse? That he is your prize, that she is your prize. It's so important for us to find the things that if they're left unattended, they can devalue and destroy your relationship. That's what love seeks. But we also see love fulfills. And so we get to the wedding night. And it's this beautiful picture I want us to see. We're going to look at these two verses together that explain the consummation here. I want you to see it. It says, "Awaken, north wind. Come, south wind." This is the woman speaking. "Blow on my garden and spread the fragrance of its spices. Let my love come to his garden and eat its choicest fruits." The man responds, "I have come to my garden, my sister, my bride. I gather my myrrh with my spices. I eat my honeycomb with my honey. I drink my wine with my milk." And then the narrator responds, and looking at this, he says, "Eat, friends, drink, be intoxicated with caresses." You notice the word that keeps popping up in this. It's very intentional. The word garden. Garden. Fruit. Garden. What is this pointing us back to? The Garden of Eden. You see, sex in a covenantal marriage relationship between a husband and a wife, it can be an absolutely beautiful thing. It can bring our hearts back, even just for a moment, to where we were created to be in Eden, this beautiful place where there's relationship, where Adam and Eve, they were naked and they were unashamed. They saw each other. And there was full intimacy that this couple had. They had strong desire for one another. What you see here in chapter 4, verse 9, the husband says to her, right at the beginning here, "You have captured my heart." The literal translation is, "You drive me crazy." He is crazy about her. He is infatuated with her. He loves her. This is a beautiful thing that he's saying right here. She responds to him later on in the song, and she says, "I am my love's, and his desire is for me." This desire is the same word that God uses in Genesis 4 when he's talking with Cain, and he's saying, sin's desire is to have you, to destroy you. Sin's desire is so strong, its desire to destroy you and to destroy me. And this is the kind of desire that he has for her. It's a powerful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And it's consummated on their wedding night. This emotional and relational and spiritual intimacy meets its place in physical consummation on their wedding night. And this is important for us because we need to see in Song of Songs, chapter 8, it talks about the strength of love. It says, "Love is as strong as death. Jealousy is as unrelenting as Sheol. Love's flames are fiery flames, an almighty flame." This is the flames of God, of what's talking about here. A huge torrent cannot extinguish love. Rivers cannot sweep it away. If a man were to give all his wealth for love, it would be utterly scorned. And so all of this is saying that love is this powerful gift that God has given us that can hearken our hearts back to the Garden of Eden when we're in covenantal relationship and consummating the relationship. And this is why 3 different times this plea is given to the women of Jerusalem from the woman when she says, "Do not stir up or awaken love until the appropriate time." Because love is powerful. And we live in a society that just says, sleep around. Who cares? It's just sex. But then we wonder why there's so much distress and why there's so much emotional and psychological and sexual unhealth in our society. is because we know that sex is a gift for a purpose. It's not just for anyone. It is a relationship between a husband and wife in covenantal relationship. And this is so important for us to understand this. But the foundation of their relationship was not just the fact that Solomon and his wife were really attracted to each other. It's great to be attracted to your spouse. That's not a bad thing. But it's not the foundation. It's this. This is my love, and this is my friend. Are you friends with your spouse? Are you actually friends? Or are you roommates? You know, some of us, it can be so easy over time to allow that emotional distance to spread us out that honestly, that emotional connection is gone. And friendship is the foundation of a flourishing marriage. Friendship is the foundation of a flourishing marriage. Being able to see each other, be able to know everything about one another. And that's what she is celebrating here. And so we see that love speaks the truth to the lies. It seeks out the things that can devalue and destroy the relationship. It finds its fulfillment in the relationship. But lastly, it reconciles. See, the honeymoon period in the song and the story, it comes to an end. Because things aren't always great in paradise. There's a reason why it's called the honeymoon period. In fact, in chapter 5, it talks about the woman. She was washing up for bed. She, washed up, had her pajamas on, put her retainer in. She popped in some melatonin. She's in bed. She's ready to go to sleep. And Solomon's like, hey, you wanna? And she's like, no. Are you kidding me? I'm about to fall asleep here any minute. But the way she says no in such a way is it creates distance emotionally between her and him. Maybe she had been creating a pattern of saying no to him when he was asking for them to have sex. Maybe there's other things. Maybe it's how she said it. But whatever it was, there was a distance that was created between her and him. And the words that we say can affect relationship, married or not. We need to be careful with how we speak to people. We need to be able to make sure to not devalue them. And then we need to make sure to follow actually in what she does next. Because she realizes what it is that she's done. And she doesn't sit there and pout and feel justified in herself. What does she do? She opens to her love, but my love had turned away and gone away, and my heart sank because he had left. And what she does is she pursues him. She goes after him. And it's nighttime in the story, which is a very dangerous thing for a woman in that culture to do, to go out into the streets. It actually talks about how when she ran out that the watchman found her and beat her, but she kept going. She kept pursuing her love. She was vulnerable by putting herself out there, and she was going after the one that she loved. This is so important for us that we pursue reconciliation. And it often requires us to be vulnerable. It requires us often to be willing to die to parts of ourselves to reconcile the relationship. And then when she's out at night, she sees her friends, and her friends are out. And they ask her, what makes the one you love better than another? Why are you doing this? Why is it worth reconciling with him? Don't you know all the things that he's done? He's so needy. He's all this, da, 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 da. And she could easily go and badmouth him. He's a wimp. Oh my gosh, he's just so sensitive. But she doesn't do that. And before I tell you what she said, I just want to ask you this. When tensions are high between you and your spouse, how do you speak about them when they're not around? How do you speak about them? Is it life-giving? Is it affirming? Does it affirm that you still love them and value them? Or you degrade them, speak down on them, justify yourself and vilify them? It's so easy to do this, but she doesn't. What she does is she says, he's worth it because he is amazing. He is a godly man of character. He's a wonderful guy. He's strong. He's everything that I've ever wanted in a husband. She speaks life over him. And when she finds him, she's able to reconcile because that's a test in that moment when she's talking with her friends. It truly is a test to see if her heart is at a place where she can reconcile when he's not around. And so when she sees him, there is reconciliation, and they're able to be joined together again. And love is worth pursuing, because reconciliation is a beautiful gift that God has made available to us. And so we've seen that love speaks the truth to the lies. It seeks out the things that can devalue and destroy our relationships. We see that if we're not careful, or rather, if we are careful, it could fulfill the longings that we have in our hearts. And fourthly, that it reconciles. But ultimately, at the foundation of all of it, if all of this just comes down to one final thing for us to see, is that we pursue love because love first pursued us. Love first pursued us in the person of Jesus Christ. We pursue love because God, in his grace, pursued us first through Jesus. And here we see that, yes, love speaks, but we also see that Jesus speaks the truth to the lies that you and I often want to believe about ourselves. We see that love seeks what can destroy and devalue a relationship. And we see that Jesus sought us because he valued us so much by dying on the cross. We see that love fulfills, but we see ultimately that Jesus fulfills, because Jesus is the one who ultimately satisfies the longing in your and my hearts. Augustine says that we were made to be in relationship with him, and we will be restless until we rest in relationship with Jesus. And we see that love reconciles, and Jesus ultimately is the one who reconciles you and me to God. This is what Jesus does for us. This is so important for us to be able to see this. And this is part of the mystery of what marriage is about. Paul talks about in Ephesians 5, the relationship between Jesus and the church, and the relationship between a husband and their wife. It's a beautiful mystery, and it should be one that gives us tremendous hope, whether you're in a married relationship, whether you're not married at all, whether you're engaged, whether you're dating. It should give you tremendous hope. Because the reality is that you and I, we all bring in brokenness into our relationships. We all bring in shame. When two people enter into relationship, whatever kind of relationship it is, it's two sinful people, and therefore the waters are already infected with sin. But by entering into relationship with Jesus, when you follow Jesus, all of the relationships that you have will flow from that well, which means that restoration, reconciliation, hope, and healing can be found. Paul talks about with sexual sin. A lot of us carry that. That when you sin sexually, you sin against your own body. And when you enter into a relationship with someone, you carry that brokenness into the relationship. I can relate to this. In the first year of my marriage with my wife, Allison, I carried a lot of sexual brokenness and baggage into the relationship. It was really hard. There's a lot of conflict that arose because of it. And Allie was grieving, rightly so, through a lot of it and processing this, trying to figure out, man, I thought I knew who you were. And it was a really difficult season. But I'm just so grateful because there was a day she called me. I was in the Factoria Mall, and she called me, and she said, Jack, I love you. I know this has been a difficult year, but I want you to know I forgive you. We can turn the page. Let's move forward together. I love you. And that was a turning point for our marriage that brought so much healing. And it was because of what Jesus did through her and through me. Jesus brought us to that place where we can be healed. And we're broken people with broken bodies entering into a relationship. And we remember that Jesus' body was broken on the cross. His blood was shed for us. And by his wounds, your marriage can be healed. By his wounds, your relationships can be healed. By his wounds, your addiction can be broken. By his wounds, you could seek and find reconciliation. It's through the blood of Jesus Christ alone that this happens. So maybe today, just for practical, what should I do? A simple thing. Finding your spouse, finding the person that you have tension in the relationship with, and pray with them. Not pray God fix them, pray God bless them. Not God change them and see where I'm right, but Lord, search me and let me know where I'm wrong. When both parties approach God humbly in this way, there's so much healing that is available. It's such a simple thing. Some of you, it's you need to go and talk with a Christian counselor or talk with a pastor, talk with a good, godly Christian friend or couple that you know that's a little bit further down the road. And my prayer is that you will do that and allow people to speak life into your relationship, be able to show you the truth of what Jesus has done for you and give you and your relationship hope. Healing is available for you today. My question is, will you allow Jesus to heal what is broken in your life?